Hi, it's me. Welcome to my channel. Today, we're gonna discuss about underwater pyramids. The discovery of the flooded tombs along Egypt's Nile River was truly shocking. Archaeologists were so surprised that they named the site the Valley of the Whales, because it looks like a massive graveyard of ancient whales. Only the gigantic stone gatekeepers known as pylons protrude from the water, offering clues to the treasures hidden below. It all began in 2003, when an Egyptian fisherman noticed a strange object sticking out of the river's surface near the town of Dashur. It looked like part of a wall, but it shouldn't have been there. You see, this area of the Nile had been underwater for more than 2 millennia after the construction of the nearby Aswan High Dam in 1964. The dam had intentionally flooded huge portions of the Nile in order to create Lake Nasser, which would eventually stretch over 500 kilometers up the river. At its greatest extent, it covers approximately 5,000 square kilometers. This created Africa's largest man-made lake and also drowned dozens of archaeological sites along the Nile. As soon as news spread about the submerged structure, officials sent in divers to investigate. They found another pylon, or gateway, connected to the first, forming a sort of entrance to a buried temple. Further excavations revealed the names of 2 pharaohs, Teats and Amenhotep III, who reigned during the 18th dynasty around 3,700 years ago, but no one could explain how their monuments ended up under the river. In 2007, a team of American and Egyptian archaeologists launched a full-scale investigation. Their search uncovered a small portion of a much larger complex, including several sunken chapels, a mortuary temple, a causeway, 2 gigantic Sphinx statues, and even parts of a harbor. All told, the temple complex measured almost 1 kilometer wide and 1.5 kilometers long, and it appears to have been built to honor Amenhotep III and his wife, Queen T. What makes the temple so special? Well, it turns out that Amenhotep III was the pharaoh during what many historians consider to be the peak of Egypt's new kingdom. His reign lasted from 1390 to 1353 BC, a time when Egypt enjoyed relative peace and prosperity. He inherited a vast empire stretching from the Levant to the Nubian border, but he expanded it even further, conquering the lands of modern Syria and Palestine. He also waged successful campaigns against the Nubian kingdoms of Kush and Napata, bringing all 3 regions under Egyptian rule. But his most lasting legacy is his monuments, especially the mortuary temples he built at Malkata and Carmel Hetton. Unfortunately, they are both located in the flooded zone of Lake Nasser, which means researchers can only access a small part of each temple. What makes things even more difficult is that most of the discoveries were made in the 1960s. Before modern imaging technologies were available, researchers have done their best to study the monuments using traditional methods, but they need to find new ways to learn more. And that's why scientists have recently partnered with a group of scuba divers and underwater archaeologists. Together, they are exploring the sunken remains and creating detailed 3D models. These virtual renderings will reveal exactly how the temple looked when it stood above ground and may help answer some important questions about its history. For example, recent investigations suggest that the temple may have also functioned as a harbor where ships brought goods from as far away as Punt. This would make it an important hub of international trade, and perhaps the center of a vast mercantile network. To learn more, scientists must map the entire floor of the lake. That's not easy, considering its size, and the murky waters make visibility difficult. On top of that, the silt and sand stirred up by motorboats often obscure the diver's vision. As a result, researchers have enlisted the help of self-guided underwater robots equipped with sonar. In late 2020, They began mapping the bottom of the lake in the hopes of finding other submerged ruins. So far, they've discovered nearly 100 previously unknown artifacts, including fragments of broken pottery and pieces of a sandstone kiosk that probably came from another temple. Most excitingly, they found possible evidence of a causeway connecting Amenhotep, the third temple, to a nearby mortuary temple built by his son, King Tut. If their hypothesis is correct, this would mean that the young king's famous tomb might also be underwater somewhere in Lake Nasser, and that means that we might be on the verge of discovering a brand new treasure of world history. No? 7. Hidden graves. In the pre-dawn hours of April 28, 2020, two men prepared to dive into the dark depths of Egypt's Lake Nasser. Their mission: explore the flooded remains of the ancient city of Wadi-es Saga. The men were part of a research project called The Secrets of the Sunken Kingdom, and their goal was to document the hidden tombs, temples, and streets buried beneath the lake. What they found was truly amazing. Since the flooding of the Nile in the 1960s, very few people had explored this part of the lake. The divers used a side-scan sonar to create maps of the lakebed and identify potential areas of interest. These included hundreds of empty brick tombs, some dating back to the 26th dynasty around 600 BC. At the time, Egypt was ruled by a series of foreign conquerors known as the pharaohs of the 27th dynasty. These rulers came from across the Levant and the Aegean, bringing new cultural influences to Egypt. Some Egyptians accepted these changes while others resisted, believing that the old gods were being replaced by foreign deities. Among them was a priest named Ptah, who fled to the mountains of Nubia rather than submit to the invaders. There he founded a new city and filled it with followers of the old religion. After centuries of decline, the native Egyptians experienced a revival thanks to the support of the Nubian kings. But unfortunately, they never regained control of their homeland, and now the secrets of their lost kingdom are being revealed by divers. Thanks to their efforts, we are learning more about the daily life of ordinary Egyptians living under foreign rule. We're also discovering how they coped with the challenges of burying their dead. In ancient times, Egyptians buried their dead in underground galleries carved into the sides of hills, but these tombs are incredibly vulnerable to erosion. Over the past 2,500 years, wind, rain, and flooding have eroded many of them, turning once magnificent burial grounds into piles of rubble. The good news is that the lake has preserved these tombs better than the rest of Egypt. Researchers believe that the alkaline minerals in the water have protected the tombs from decay, so by studying them, scientists hope to unlock the secrets of Egyptian funerary practices. They can also learn more about the ancient Egyptians' religious beliefs and customs. To do this, they're working closely with experts in Egyptology, who can interpret the symbols and iconography they discover. They've already found several examples of Egyptian funerary art, including statues of baboons and bulls. These creatures represent the souls of the deceased and often appear in Egyptian tombs. The divers are also searching for other signs of human activity, such as tools, weapons, and pieces of pottery. By studying these objects, looting has damaged many of the tombs, forcing scientists to get creative with their investigation methods. Sometimes they have to sift through piles of dirt and debris to find valuable artifacts. Other times they have to piece together shattered pottery and reconstruct the faces of statues. Despite these challenges, the divers are making steady progress. They have already uncovered dozens of valuable artifacts and hope to find many more in the years to come. Their work is not only shedding new light on Egypt's lost kingdom, but it is also helping to preserve its cultural heritage for future generations. No. 6. Cleopatra's Lost Palace. For decades, rumors have swirled about the location of Cleopatra's Lost Palace, Historians know that it stood somewhere along the Nile River in Alexandria, but its exact location has been a mystery. That is, until now. Using advanced imaging techniques, scientists have discovered the submerged remains of the ancient structure. The palace was once a grand testament to the wealth and power of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a series of Greek rulers who descended from Alexander the Great and controlled Egypt from 305 to 30 BC, built by Cleopatra's father, Ptolemy XII. The palace consisted of a series of floating platforms connected by bridges. It was surrounded by lush gardens and dotted with fountains, statues, and pools. Here, Cleopatra hosted lavish parties for her guests, complete with live music, dancing, and exotic animals, but her reign was not without its challenges. She faced rebellions, natural disasters, and invasions from neighboring kingdoms. In 323 BC, for example, her brother and husband, Ptolemy XIII, was killed in a battle with Syrian forces. When Cleopatra took the throne, she had to flee to the city of Marmarica for safety. There she stayed for 3 years until her enemies were defeated. Then in 31 BC, Cleopatra and her lover, Mark Antony, waged war with Octavian, who would later become the Emperor Augustus. The conflict resulted in the Battle of Actium, considered by many to be the greatest naval battle in history. Although the Romans ultimately won, Cleopatra managed to escape to her palace in Alexandria. There she spent her final days plotting her revenge before taking her own life in 30 BC. Since then, her palace has been lost to the sands of time, or rather, the sands of the sea. You see, in the early 1960s, the Egyptian government built a new dam on the Nile River. This created Lake Nasser, which flooded a large portion of Alexandria. Among the submerged ruins were the remains of Cleopatra's palace. For decades, scientists knew that the palace existed, but they couldn't agree on its location. Some believed it lay in the eastern harbor of Alexandria, while others argued that it stood on a small island in the middle of the Nile. Then in 2020, a team of marine archaeologists announced that they had finally solved the mystery. Using sonar and other imaging technologies, they had discovered the submerged remains of the palace. They identified it by matching its layout to ancient descriptions and archaeological evidence. The discovery was made possible by a massive research project called the Mapping Alexandria Project. Using unmanned vehicles and remote sensing technologies, the team scanned the seabed and created a detailed map of the submerged ruins. They also analyzed satellite images and aerial photographs to piece together Cleopatra's lost world. The discovery of the palace is a major breakthrough for historians. It will allow them to learn more about Cleopatra's life and times, as well as the history of the Ptolemaic dynasty. Researchers hope to uncover new insights about the royal court, the economy, and the culture of ancient Alexandria. They also want to learn more about the palace's architecture and engineering. Built on a series of floating platforms, it was one of the most ambitious building projects of its time. The platforms were made of concrete and filled with water to keep them stable. The rooms were connected by a network of canals and bridges, allowing visitors to move from one area to another. The palace was decorated with colorful mosaics, marble statues, and intricate carvings. It was truly a marvel of the ancient world. Cleopatra's palace is just one of many fascinating archaeological sites that have been lost to the waters of Lake Nile. In fact, the entire region is considered to be one of the most important underwater archaeological sites in the world. Divers have discovered sunken cities, temples, tombs, and even ships. Among the most remarkable finds are the ruins of a temple dedicated to the goddess Hathor, as well as the remains of a harbor that once bustled with activity. The discovery of these sites has given us a new perspective on ancient Egyptian history. It has also highlighted the importance of preserving our cultural heritage for future generations. Thanks for watching. Which of these flooded sites did you find the most fascinating? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos like these.